Greetings, Uncle Travelling Matt here, and I'm reporting on our penultimate day in Tajikistan from our rather wonderful hotel room in Panjakent, which is a city right on the border with Uzbekistan, and of course we'll be crossing over that border tomorrow. Well, what have we done today? Well, we woke up in our backpacker hostel where we stayed last night. We had our own private room, but it was literally the smallest room I've ever been in. How they managed to fit two single beds in there, I don't know. And the bathroom, you could hardly turn around in it. But I actually slept okay, although, as you can tell, I've got this horrendous cold, so that didn't help. But got up, and then we took a taxi to where the shared taxis leave for the north, which is of course the same place where we were dropped off before. And the road is blocked, which suggests they don't let those cars into the city. And so we got on. I mean, there was almost a fight between the drivers as they were vying for our business. But we got in this car and we went off straight away. So it was great not to have to wait for ages. And the journey was absolutely amazing. Now, of course, 3/4 of that journey had done before in the opposite direction. But that section had been dark. So we hadn't seen the full glory. We'd seen the glory of the earlier bit, but that section had been dark. So we saw it, and quite literally one of the most incredible drives I've ever been in my life. I don't know how high those mountains are. They must be about 4,000 metres or something. But there is snow on the top. And you've got to remember, we're talking about 40-degree temperatures down here, and there's snow on the top of these things. And we go right up to the top before we go into the tunnel, the East tunnel, which is the one I talked about before. They are a little bit greener than I thought they were when I was going through at night. I mean, they are still very barren mountains, but there are little bits of greenery there. And what was interesting was to see some of the settlements on there. So there was obviously a lot of quarrying and that kind of stuff going on, which we saw. And I think there's hydroelectric stuff that's been done and that. But when we got down into the valley of the river, and I've forgotten the name, wait a second. When we got down into the valley of the Zarafshan River, which I believe is mentioned by Alexander the Great. He went there. The Sogdians live there. Some really pretty settlements on there. The main one, which I noticed on the way up, it's called Aini. Aini, I think he was a famous poet, so it's named after him. And what I noticed is there was this mosque there with a really ancient minaret. I think it's about 10th or 11th century, but to protect it, because it's like mud brick, they built this structure over it so it looked like a giant Dalek. But that was quite interesting. We also stopped off at a couple of places. One was to get some food, which was very tasty, but the other was this little place where there was loads of drinks on sale, and it was being cooled by water that was dripping down from the mountain streams. But they were selling some different foodstuffs as well, and there was these massive baskets full of all these kind of off-white balls. And we didn't know what they were, and they said, "Well, try one." And they were, well, one of the most disgusting things I've ever had. They were kind of cheese, but really salty, like kind of rock-hard goat's cheese, I think, and they were disgusting. But I think they're called zurf. But yeah, they're a bit of a thing here. So glad I bought a drink there, just to wash the taste away. But it was a wonderful drive, and gradually, as we went along the Zarafshan Valley, the mountains grew less and less and less until the valley now is very wide and the mountains are quite small on either side. Just a bit about the Sogdians. So the Sogdians were the people that Alexander the Great came across, and I'll be talking about them a little bit in a second. But it is said that some of them still exist, and they have some villages where Sogdian is spoken in the opposite direction, further up the river. Not many, because there was a forced population move in the Soviet time. They wanted them to work the cotton plantations down the south of the country, and so they helicoptered them out. But some returned, and they're still there, and some tourists go and visit them. I mean, for me, I I can't really see the point because I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between Sogdian and Farsi anyway. But I guess it would be nice to say you've met a Sogdian. Um, anyway, Panjakent, it's quite a large town. Um, I get the feeling we've probably visited most of the big towns in Tajikistan now, and it's famous for its ruins, ancient Panjakent, which is a massive ruined Sogdian city. But we settled into our hotel, which is one of the best we've come across, run by a really friendly guy, and we've got this huge room, as you can see, it's great. And then went to the museum because that shut at 5, and one of those communist era museums, quite a distinctive building, and some interesting exhibits. A little bit steep on the ticket price, but that's the way the jelly wobbles, I guess. And there was a lot of women in there, seeming having a chat. That seems to be its main purpose. And there was an Imam Ali Rahman room and also a communist room, so it was quite good fun. And then we went. We decided we'd go straight up to the ruins of Panjakent, the ancient city, and we hailed down like a little. Like a kind of microbus type thing, I suppose you'd call it. A bit like the Daihatsu that my dad had when we were kids. And he drove us all the way up there. And then when I asked him how much, he's like, no, do it for free, which I thought was really nice. There was a mini museum there with copies of the frescoes that they found, but the originals are mostly in the Hermitage in St. Petersburg now. I think there's a couple in the Museum in Dushanbe that we didn't get to. But it was a massive city, and we wandered around a large part of it. I mean, because it was mud brick, you couldn't always tell what things were. Certain bits have been done up, but even then, they weren't well signposted, which was a shame. But, you know, at times you could see, oh yeah, there was a street running there, and those were houses, and the setting itself was spectacular. And of course, it's one of those Silk Road cities where, you know, there were bazaars, there was a fortress, there was Zoroastrians, Buddhists, and then later the Muslims came. And it was just this melting pot. And really, really big, remarkable place. So it was quite atmospheric. So we stayed there a bit and then took a marshutka back. And it was our first marshutka of the trip. We thought we'd be taking all the time. But it's all been shared taxis. But this marshutka was all locals. And they squeezed us in. And when we got down into the town, it was only one sommel each. So we did that, and we came back to the hotel and chilled out a bit, and then went out for tea. And Tom wanted plov, and there was a restaurant that was recommended to us that was meant to be very good for plov, but apparently it was shut. So we went to this other restaurant, and I'm looking up the name of the dish. Yeah, so we went to this restaurant, and the only dish they were offering was called Kurutop. Qurutob, right? And this is a speciality of Tajikistan, apparently. According to the guidebook, balls of salted cheese, kurut, are dissolved in water and poured over dry, flaky bread. The dish is then topped with onions fried in oil. It may be accompanied by lagman, noodle soup with mutton, and yeah, that's it. So those vile balls of cheese actually formed the base of this, and we thought it was yogurt actually, and I thought at first they were chips, and Tom thought they were pastry, but they were obviously strips of bread that were in the kind of soup thing, and then there was meat on top, and also some noodles if lagman was there, and then, you know, bits of onion and whatnot. It was absolutely wonderful, but even though we only ordered one portion between two of us, it was enormous. It was absolutely huge, and we both ate less than half of it, which I felt really guilty about because I don't like leaving food, but there's no way I could have physically eaten it. And of course, my appetite's a lot better now than it was a few days ago. So that's that. But yeah, so that was that. We got accosted by a drunk man in the restaurant, and he was dragged away by the owner, but the owner was very apologetic after all that. Don't worry about it, it's cool. And then we came back to our hotel room where we've got this channel on that's showing basically Central Asian music and dancing on a 24/7 loop. Most of it seems to be Kazakh, although at the moment Emomali Rahman is sort of doing his own version of a mass games. It seems to be. He looks very happy. He looks a bit like Kim Jong-un on it. Anyway, that's that. This is it. For the end of Tajikistan. I found it a fascinating little country. It's a country that very few people ever go to. Very few people have even heard of. Nobody knows anything about it. I mean, I'd been to Central Asia before, and it was somewhere I knew nothing about. And it's the one people miss off. And yet, scenically, it's got stuff. It's friendly. Dushanbe is well worth seeing as a capital. I actually really liked it. I know it was cheesy and everything, but I think it's a great capital. My bugbear is getting around. It is so hard to get around this country. It's all share taxis. And of course, with my other annoyance is because I've been so very ill, I haven't probably appreciated it as much as I can do. The heat is way too intense for me, at least. And that hasn't helped. But if you went, earlier or later in the year, it would be better. And there's so much on offer here. So really, do consider coming to Tajikistan. I actually prefer it to the other stands because they're far more developed these days. They're more westernised. Almaty, it was almost like being in Europe. So whereas you don't get that feeling here, you feel like you are on the borders of Afghanistan. You honestly feel, apart from like the religious extremism, this does feel like Afghanistan. Scenically, culturally, cuisine, everything. And so that's that. But anyway, we're going back to Uzbekistan tomorrow. We're going to Samarkand, which I've seen before. Thomas has not seen it. Never seen the Registan, so that's going to be pretty cool. And we're going to meet Aziz. Hopefully, we want to get a train from Samarkand to Tashkent. And then it is on to Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan. It's me, Uncle Travelling Matt. Keep travelling.